Hello?
John Brennan?
Who is this?
You're a f***ing loser.
Who is this? How did you get this number?
It was so f***ing easy, bro. You're such a
What do you want?
I don't want anything. I already f***ing own you.
It was late October 2015, and the air was crisp as autumn settled in. On the surface, it seemed like any other day, but for John Brennan, head of the CIA, it was the beginning of a nightmare. As he answered his phone, he had no idea that what seemed like an ordinary call would evolve into something far more unsettling. Hello, John Brennan. Who is this? You're a loser, John. The caller's voice was casual, almost mocking. Brennan, accustomed to being one of the most powerful and protected men on Earth, found himself caught off guard. How did this unknown person get his number? It wasn't a prank. The voice on the other end had a purpose.
How did you get this number?
It was so f***ing easy, bro. You're such a
On the other end of the line, a 15-year-old kid sat in his room in England, staring at his phone in disbelief. He had just pulled off something extraordinary. He had called the director of the CIA. This wasn't just any kid. This was Craka, the leader of a hacker collective known as Crackers with Attitude, CWA. What began as a seemingly harmless prank would soon spiral into one of the most disruptive cyber attacks on the US government. How did a group of teenagers, still in school, bring the most powerful intelligence apparatus in the world to its knees? Our story begins long before this call. Two teenagers, one from the West Midlands in England, the other from Virginia, USA, were already deep in the world of hacking. Craka, the British teen who had just prank called the CIA, had started hacking not for fame, but to make a political statement. Meanwhile, Default, an American hacker, was equally skilled, having honed his abilities by starting where many hackers begin, video games. In 2008, hacking culture was booming. The notorious hacking collective Anonymous was making waves across the internet, launching cyber attacks on corporations and governments alike. These attacks weren't just about fun. They were often political, aimed at exposing hypocrisy, corruption, and secrets. Anonymous inspired a generation of new hackers, including Default, who became captivated by the power hackers could wield from behind their keyboards. But as Anonymous grew, so did the risks. Infighting, arrests, and constant surveillance by the FBI left the group vulnerable. Feeling disillusioned with the direction of Anonymous, Default turned to AnonSec, a smaller, more focused hacker group that prided itself on staying under the radar. Here, he sharpened his skills, becoming an expert at probing and exploiting vulnerabilities in networks. Fast forward to 2015, and hacking had become a political weapon. For Craka, hacking wasn't just about demonstrating his skills. It was about making a statement against what he saw as global injustices, particularly US involvement in the Middle East. The conflict in Palestine weighed heavily on him, and he blamed US foreign policy for the suffering he saw there. Armed with just a laptop, Craka began targeting high-ranking US officials. His first target, James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence. It was surprisingly easy. A few Google searches revealed Clapper's personal phone number and email address. Within minutes, Craka had rerouted Clapper's phone calls to pro-Palestinian organizations, leaving the director humiliated. This bold move caught the attention of Default, who saw in Craka a kindred spirit. The two began collaborating, hacking into more accounts, but they knew their biggest target was still to come. With Default and Craka working together, they set their sights on John Brennan, the director of the CIA. The idea that a pair of teenagers could infiltrate the personal life of the head of America's top intelligence agency seemed far-fetched. Yet, through a tactic known as social engineering, Craka tricked Verizon into granting him access to Brennan's personal email account. Once inside, they didn't just settle for prank calls or email disruptions. They uncovered deeply classified documents, including Brennan's 47-page SF-86 form, which is used for top-secret government clearance. The form contained personal information about Brennan, his criminal history, drug use, and psychological records. But it wasn't just about Brennan's personal life. These files contained classified national security strategies, discussions about Middle East operations, and even details about enhanced interrogation techniques, otherwise known as torture. The teenagers now held in their hands the keys to some of America's most sensitive secrets. What could two teenagers possibly do with such explosive material? They debated their options. Should they release the files themselves or pass them on to someone who could ensure maximum exposure? They decided on the latter and sent the files to Julian Assange, the founder of WikiLeaks. By October 2015, WikiLeaks began publishing the documents, sending shockwaves through the intelligence community. The leak was a massive embarrassment for the CIA, not just because of the sensitive nature of the documents, but because of how easily they had been obtained. The fallout was immense. The CIA was forced to spend millions relocating operatives who might have been exposed by the breach. It wasn't just a financial blow, it was a significant hit to national security, demonstrating just how vulnerable even the most fortified systems could be when targeted by determined hackers. As news of the breach spread, public opinion was divided. Some hailed Craka and Default as heroes, exposing the secrecy and hypocrisy of powerful institutions. Others saw them as reckless teens, unaware of the true gravity of their actions. In one of his final interviews before his arrest, Default reflected on the chaos he and Craka had caused. At the time, I didn't care. It was like all bets were off. I had gone too far to stop. I just wanted people to notice. For Craka, the motivation was always political. He saw his actions as a form of protest against US involvement in the Middle East. But both knew they had made powerful enemies, and it was only a matter of time before the authorities caught up. In 2016, the reckoning came. Default was arrested by the FBI in the United States, and Craka was taken into custody by British authorities. The arrests were swift and brutal. In Default's case, FBI agents raided his home just as his computer finished decrypting. They took everything: his computers, hard drives, and even his stash of Bitcoin, which was worth a fortune. Default faced 5 years in federal prison and a $145,000 restitution payment. He spent much of his sentence in solitary confinement, a cruel irony for someone who had spent so much of his life behind a screen, connected to the world. Craka, being a minor, received a lighter sentence. He spent 2 years in a juvenile detention center and has since tried to move on with his life. He's now working toward a career in cybersecurity, but remains out of the public eye, unwilling to discuss the events that led to his arrest. Though their hacking spree ended, the legacy of crackers with attitude continues to resonate in the world of cybersecurity and intelligence. The breach of the CIA served as a wake-up call to governments and intelligence agencies worldwide. It highlighted the vulnerability of even the most secure systems and demonstrated the power of social engineering, a tactic more effective than any brute force hack. For Craka and Default, their actions were an act of resistance, a way to challenge the imbalances of power in a world dominated by government surveillance and secrecy. But their story also serves as a cautionary tale. In the digital age, the line between privacy and surveillance is fragile, and even the most fortified systems can be brought down by the simplest of tricks. As we move further into a world where our lives are increasingly digitized, the actions of individuals like Craka and Default reveal just how precarious the balance between individual privacy and national security can be. These teenagers, armed only with their skills and a computer, managed to challenge some of the world's most powerful institutions. Their actions left an indelible mark on the world of cybersecurity, forcing agencies to rethink their approach to protecting sensitive information. In the digital age, power is not confined to governments or corporations. It can be wielded by anyone with the skills to disrupt even the most secure systems. proving that the most significant disruptions often come from the most unexpected places. In the rapidly evolving digital age, Craka and Default's story illustrates just how easily the lines between security and vulnerability can blur. With nothing more than their technical skills, they confronted and disrupted some of the world's most secure systems. Their actions reverberated far beyond their initial intentions, highlighting that today's most significant challenges can come from unexpected places. As technology continues to advance, we're left to wonder, will our defenses keep pace, or will the next wave of skilled individuals uncover new vulnerabilities? The future holds the answer.